Hi guys, good morning, welcome back to the channel, and today we've got a very interesting car because we've got the Ioniq 6 Inspiration on review with us. This car is actually made in Singapore, it's built in Singapore, so it's pretty cool. Made in the factory over down at Jurong, opposite end of the island from where we are right now. But this is the top spec Ioniq 6, which means this thing is properly quick. But in today's review, what we want to find out is also whether it is as comfortable and as usable and as practical and as great as it is quick. So without any further ado, let's get on with the review. But before we do that, if you're a driver in Singapore and you're looking to renew your insurance code, looking for the best insurance price possible, check out the link in the description. It will not disappoint you because we've got some of the best possible codes for you to check out. Those are in the description. They're free to inquire, so if you need any help, please let us know. We'll be very happy to help you. Let's get on with the review. Alright guys, so jumping straight into the review, I think many people are very familiar with the Ioniq 5 because that was kind of the hero car when Hyundai went on this super aggressive resurgence a couple of years ago, and that was kind of like the first car that they launched in the EV range. But the Ioniq 6 is actually an awesome looking car, the one right in front of you. When I say awesome looking, I know that it's going to be a little bit polarizing for people because there are some people that I've spoken to that absolutely do not like the look of the Ioniq 6. And I must say that when I first took the car, my first impressions of the car were fairly neutral. I don't think I hated the design, but I didn't love it either. But as I've driven it, I'm not sure if this makes sense, but the quality of the drive has made me like the exterior look of the car. I don't even know if that makes sense, but in any case, what you see here is a very sleek looking coupe style vehicle, almost like a sedan. And for those of you who know me, I'm a big fan of sedans. I still drive sedans, and I generally would prefer this body style to the Ioniq 5. And I think it's also got a little bit more of a timeless look to it because the Ioniq 5 is quite cartoonish, meaning like a lot of it looks like a cartoon character, like a Minecraft character, so to speak. And this one just looks a little bit more grown up, right? It has more normal dimensions. It has, it still has the pixel lights that you see on the Ioniq 5, but generally speaking, it's got a more grown up look to it. So as standard, you get 20-inch wheels, and these are fairly large, even by today's standards. I think by today's standards, standard wheels are like 18 or 19. But 20-inch wheels here, and you would think that this would compromise comfort quite a bit, but you will be wrong because the Ioniq 6 is super comfortable to drive. And I'll share a little bit more about that later, but just wanted to show you the side view of the car. This car does have a certain presence to it. I think it looks pretty good actually. The rear of the car is probably where there's a little bit more contention because I think where the C-pillar starts to slope down, you can see this line over here. Some people, my wife included, feels like the car has a bit of a droopy butt, and I'm not sure if you agree with me. Let me know in the comments if you think this car has a droopy butt or if this counts as a droopy butt, because if you think back to cars like the X4 in the past, the BMW X4, that did look like it had a droopy butt. This one, a little bit better. The more I look at it, the nicer it looks actually. And in fact, I was at a Porsche event over the last few days, or in the last few days I entered a Porsche event, and I actually left the car to the valet to kind of park the car. And then when I was reclaiming the car, and I said, you know, Ioniq 6, and he was like, oh yeah, the one that looks like the Porsche, is it? So there are some people who think that this looks, you know, like a Porsche as well, like maybe like a Panamera or something like that. But in any case, this is the rear of the car. You've got some light patterns, full light bar across the back, and then this fairly aggressive looking sort of a rear spoiler, so to speak. Now, the car looks big and the interior is absolutely solid. I'll show you later, but there are some compromises made to the boot. So for those of you who haven't actually seen the boot of the car, I think first impressions that you would expect this to be a liftback where the entire rear opens up, but no, it is a standard boot. And because it has a standard boot space and loading is actually not really that great. So my golf bag will fit, and but that's pretty much it, you know. There is some space in the rear here and space at the front, but I will not be able to fit this bag fully sideways as I do in most cars. It has to go in diagonally, so that is a little bit of a problem because if you're carrying two golf bags, you probably have to deal with taking out quite a lot of the longer clubs and laying the bags in a different configuration. So just something to note. If you're not a golfer, you don't have to worry about this, but I don't think this is a great golfer's car. Just very objectively speaking. If I was buying this car purely for its ability to carry golf clubs, like for example, if I were to buy Lexus ES because of that reason, this would probably not pass the test in terms of the boot carrying. But if you're not a golfer and you're carrying groceries, you're carrying luggage for road trips, any other things that are more regularly sized, I think you've definitely got no problem as well. It's still a decently sized boot, not with the greatest loading aperture. And I think it's a bit of a waste, right? I would love to see these cars a liftback, but it's not. So yeah, this is just something that I think will look a lot cooler if the car were actually a liftback. But enough said about the exterior. Let's jump inside the car. I want to show you the interior and see what you think about it as well. Alright, welcome guys. Welcome to the cabin of the Ioniq 6. And this is a pretty new car for us as well, because this is only the second Hyundai that we have on the channel. So let's go through this interior and check out what's available. So for starters, I think the styling language is quite similar to what you get on the Ioniq 5. You generally got very zen, very minimalist. Okay, I wouldn't use the word minimalist, but it's got a very calm feeling interior, you know, the use of lighter colors. You can obviously tell that there's some like sustainable material use going on here. And overall, the design is fairly unoffensive, but there are a few quirks about the car or the interior that I would like to flag out. So first things first, I don't really understand why there's this panel over here that sticks out like that. There's really no reason for it. I can't think of a reason. If you guys know what this panel is supposed to be used for, let me know in the comments. I'll be very keen to know. Like in other countries, are there like buttons over here? I'm not sure, but in Singapore, there's nothing over here. So this panel is a bit of a strange one. Going to the main dashboard, you've got a digital cluster here that comprises your infotainment touchscreen unit and of course your digital driver's display. And everything here is quite well organized, and graphics are actually quite neat, quite solid. I don't have any complaints. In fact, I think the reverse camera in this car is probably one of the better ones I've seen in a while. So really solid actually. Camera is clear, and I really like the top-down 360, the top view 360. So I'm not so fond of the 360 cameras that are viewed from a diagonal angle. And actually, you can view it, you can view it that way as well. So there is this sort of a diagonal 360 thing, but this is to me not really useful. It's not that high-end of a system, because when you turn on the hazard lights right now, you can't really see the hazard lights in the image. But I think that's all very inconsequential. If you look at the reverse camera, super sharp, lines are clear, and I think the top view 360 is especially useful when you are trying to park the car straight. The thing about cars today is that they've all gotten a little bit more shapely. They've all got more curves, they've all got more like wider hips, so to speak. And cars are not built like in a rectangular silhouette anymore. So what I'm trying to say here is that it's actually quite hard to visually park a car straight these days, because the side panels are just sort of sloping in, and it's hard to get a visual read on how much you're supposed to, you know, align with the parking lot lines. But with a top-down 360 camera, you don't really have to worry about it. You know, it's all actually really easy to use. Aside from that, what's weird about this system is that it does not have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. You have to attach it through a USB-A port over here. And the strange thing is, if you attach your phone via USB-C inside here, the center cubby, it doesn't actually allow you to go into Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. It has to be a USB-A cable over there. So a little bit strange. And if you're using like a newer phone, which uses a USB-C or a lightning cable, like with the iPhones, I find it's quite hard to find one that pairs with a USB-A. I could be wrong here. I'm not really a tech guy, but I found that most of my wires at home are just, you know, USB-C to Lightning or USB-C to C. It's quite hard to find like a USB-C to A. Or maybe that's just me, I'm not sure. Aside from that, let's talk about some cooler things. Okay, so one of the things I really like about the Ioniq 6 interior as well is that it comes with one of the best features made for Singapore climate, which is ventilated seats. You can't live without this in Singapore because our seats get really hot, especially if they're full leather seats, and sometimes getting into the car, having ventilated seats just helps to cool you down so much faster as compared to blowing the aircon vents at like speed 5, speed 6 or max speed, and then trying to like jack up the aircon or make it as cold as like 18 degrees, 16 degrees. Having ventilated seats just makes life a lot easier, and glad to say that the Ioniq 6 has it. Other than that, you've got wireless charger. I guess this is a wireless charger. 2 cup holders. A little bit of another quirky feature is that you've got your window buttons in the center console, and I know a lot of people are thinking that, you know, hey, you know, this is probably something you could get used to, but you know what, after a few days of driving, right, and I use these quite often, I still can't get used to it. Like, it's so strange, it's so counterintuitive, because most of the times when you're pulling up to a counter, for example like a security counter or a gantry, car park gantry, you know, you are trying to watch your inside right edge and make sure you don't hit the damn thing. And as you're trying to do this, you're also trying to press this button and locate this button. And because you're not really paying full attention on the window button, a few times I end up pressing a little bit of the passenger side button because there's no divider between the two buttons. You are actually able to press both at the same time. So, not a make or break feature for sure, you know. I don't think people make car buying decisions based on where they place their window mirrors, but it is a little bit of an annoying feature about the car that I feel like I have to bring up, because this has been the one feature that has annoyed me throughout my entire drive. But obviously, you know, there are other good things about the car as well, so don't just take this as like one bad thing about the car. As car reviewers, we kind of have to bring up everything that we see in the car. There are also many good things about the Ioniq 6 that I like, and especially in the later segment of this review, we'll talk a little bit about the things I like, because the drive of this car is impeccable. Going to the steering wheel, pretty standard Hyundai steering wheel that you get on the Ioniq 5 as well. You got your pedals for regeneration. Left side stock is for signaling and lights. Right side stock is for your wipers, and you also got a third stock, which is your drive selector. So drive, neutral, park, reverse, all very easily intuitively used or applied in this driver stock. I'm not going to comment too much about styling because I think that's quite subjective, but I feel like the interior of this car looks unoffensive but not particularly premium, and I feel like it looks way more premium on the exterior and in the way it drives as compared to the way it looks in the cabin. So that's just some points of consideration for yourself. Other than that, let's jump into the back of the car and see how this car performs as a passenger carrier, because I think people who are looking to buy an Ioniq 6 will likely be using it to carry their family. So let's see how it performs. Let's go. Alright guys, I'm not gonna lie, this is the first time I'm climbing into the back of the car because I haven't had a need to climb into the back of the car yet. And first impressions are that getting into the car is a little bit harder for an adult because of the sloping roof line. But that is consistent with any car that features this sort of coupe style sloping roof line. So I think I'm not going to complain about that, but it's just something you should know. If you are using this car as a people carrier and you're not dealing with just adults, meaning you're dealing with child seats, loading a kid into the car, the sloping roof line could be a bit of an issue because it does get in the way of your face. But aside from that, look at the amount of legroom I have in this car. This is absolutely crazy. Really solid legroom here. So this driver's seat is in my usual driving position. I'm 175 meters tall, and this is the amount of legroom that I have. There's absolutely acres acres. Super, super large. I could get a child to stand here. I could like put an entire box in front of me. It's really a solid amount of legroom. Unfortunately though, the seats do come down all the way onto the rack, so you don't really have much space for you to slot your foot underneath, which in a sense also means that you don't really get to extend your feet out in the car. But if you really do have to extend your feet out in the car, you can extend it to the other side because there is absolutely no hump on the second row here. This is a completely flat floor, which then also makes it quite usable if you're carrying, like, say, a helper and 2 kids at the back. And you, for example, maybe you don't want an SUV, but you want to carry 3 in the back. This is a really, really good kind of setup for you to do that. You've got ISOFIX points located here as well, so you can carry a rearward facing child seat. And because of the amount of leg room, you definitely have enough space for you to put the rearward facing child seat in without compromising the comfort of the front passenger. So all this is really good. In fact, headroom is not too compromised as well. Despite having a sloping roof line, I would say that the headroom is still acceptable. There is a bit of intrusion on the side here, but nothing too great, nothing too extreme. So I would say that this car definitely passes the test when it comes to carrying more than the driver in the car. Right, so with that, let's jump back into the driver's seat. I'm very keen to go take the car for a drive and to show you and to explain to you why I love the drive of the Ioniq 6 so much. Let's go. Alright guys, so now we are back in the Ioniq 6 and we're gonna go take it for a drive. And before we do that, let's go through some basic specifications of the car as per our normal practice. So this is the inspiration model of the car, which is the top spec car. And with the top spec car, you get quite a little bit more power than the base model. So in this car, you got a 77 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which actually seems quite conservative. But from this 77 kilowatt-hour battery pack, you actually get more than 500 kilometers of range, which if you think about it, if you compare it to other cars on the market, is actually fairly efficient. Of course, that being, you know, although it's efficient on paper, there's a strong chance you're gonna be juicing this car quite a little bit because it is quite fun to drive because of all the power. And how much power? You've got 321 brake horsepower, more than 600 Newton meters of torque, 605 to be exact. And this car will go from 0 to 100 in 5.1 seconds. So a properly fast car. Obviously not as quick as the BYD Seal top spec, but I think I don't feel like the cars are really like for like as well. I think the BYD Seal is really quite it's almost like an all-out performance electric car. This particular Hyundai Ioniq 6 is a little bit more like a powerful high-speed cruiser. And immediately when you get into the car and you roll off, you get a sense that this car feels super planted. Maybe it's because of the 20-inch tires that come as standard, or maybe not, but the general feeling when I roll off in this car is that this is a solid feeling car. I don't know how else to put it, but there is just a certain premiumness about the drive of the car. And of course this is a little bit, I wouldn't say unexpected, but it is a little bit of there is a little bit of a difference between the way the car is styled and built, because from the earlier segment you'll know that I don't really love the interior of the car and the build of the car. But once the car is out on the road, it brings this premiumness to the table that's really quite hard to pinpoint, quite hard to explain. Generally, steering is quite light at lower speeds, which is pretty normal of cars that you would see today. I think a lot of the new cars that you find today are also geared at making life easy for the driver. So low speed, you know, you got pretty light steering, easy to maneuver around town. But up at higher speeds, this car has this super planted feel. Steering is not all that heavy at higher speeds as well, but generally speaking, very, very planted. When you look at the car, when you look at the Ioniq 6, you know, as a car, you know, first impressions, you don't really think of this as a performance car because it does look quite like Grand Tourer-ish, like a high-speed coupe or high-speed sportback, but it really is quite a joy to drive up on the roads. So few little quirky things about the car, generally speaking. So when you put on your signal lights, and Hyundai now uses a left hand signal or left signal stock. So if you're coming to this car from a Continental car, you generally speaking you wouldn't have to get used to it. I think it's all quite seamless, the transition. In fact, I was having a bit of a tough time adjusting between this and my Lexus because my Lexus still has the stock on the right hand side. But whenever you put on your signal lights in this car, there's this camera that actually shows or picks up footage from your blind spot and puts it up on the digital cluster over here. So you have a real-time blind spot monitor every time you turn on your signal light, whether it's left or right, doesn't matter. It works on either side. And this little feature seems quite mundane or quite, you know, quite meh, but truth be told, I found it to be quite useful in a sense where you know, when I first picked up the car and I started driving it at the start of the weekend, I think I was still relying on my usual methods of checking the blind spot. But over the couple of days that I've been driving the car, I've kind of learned to trust that blind spot monitor that's digitally projected over here, and I quite like it. I found that it avoids me having to turn my head so much, and I found it to be quite reliable. And it does show me this like little low-end blind spot that normally I wouldn't be able to see anyway. So I think that's all well and good. In terms of power regeneration, there are quite a lot of power or regenerative braking settings that you can apply onto the Ioniq 6. So currently now, I'm just driving along with zero recuperation because that's generally the way I like to drive. But I often will kick the car into level 1 or level 2 mode if I need a small amount of braking. I need to slow down, like let's say I'm coming up onto the car in front of me. Just applying level 1 usually slows the car down enough for me to not have to actually use my physical brakes, which is actually pretty cool. And then if I need a little bit more braking, I can actually go to level 2, level 3, and then there is also a one pedal drive mode. So the one pedal drive mode will apply quite a heavy amount of regenerative braking, and at the same time it will slow your car down to a stop if you allow it to. But generally I'm not so fond of using one pedal braking, so I usually would drive around with zero recuperation and then apply the amount of regenerative braking that I require along the way, like as and when I require the car to slow down. So acceleration, I think a lot of people want to ask about or want to know about that part of the car. So the car will pick up speed quite violently, as I'm about to show you after this hump. So if you step on it, there is a proper amount of shaft. And in terms of the torque and the sensation that you get from the car, I don't think it really loses out to cars that are spec'd for a higher 0 to 100 time as well. So honestly, if you're talking about the feeling that you get from the car, I don't think you really lose out to cars that are running at say 4 seconds or 3+ seconds. Torque figures are still very high. You still got a proper 605 Newton meters of torque, and I think that's really the figure that is important when you think about driving around in Singapore roads, because you don't need long sustained bursts of speed. What you want is a quick burst of speed over a short amount of distance for you to squeeze into lanes or to squeeze into certain gaps in traffic, because generally in Singapore we've got these sort of Like for example, our expressway exits and our expressway entrances are usually quite close together, so at any given time you've always got cars trying to filter out and filter in at the same time. Having this level of performance is honestly quite useful in getting around this sort of traffic. I'm being chased by a 3 Series right now on this service road, so we'll see if we can lose him. Ooh, that feels good. That feels properly good. And it's not one of those, it's not one of those cars where, you know, it's just blind power and then the car feels like super wobbly and stuff. It's solid. It's really, really, really planted. Unfortunately, you know, it's peak hour morning traffic right now, and I don't really have the chance to show you how this car cruises, but you know, over the weekend I had the chance to drive this car with a little bit more empty expressways, and driving up to 120 kilometers per hour in this car is just so pleasant. It's just so pleasant. And obviously the car is capable of so much more, but you know, in Singapore, I think we don't really have the opportunity to drive that fast anyway. There are speed limits as well. So on small stretches of road, managed to get to the highest speed. Really, really comfortable. One last thing I want to say about the Ioniq 6 is that it is surprisingly comfortable, even with 20-inch tires, and given the fact that it's not a brand that's known to make super comfortable cars. And to kind of prove my point, I'm going to go over the next hump at about maybe 45 kilometers per hour, and generally the car just kind of sits. It just doesn't jump around that much, you know. So I'm going over this at, yeah, that's about 40-ish, and that was actually really, really comfortable. So for those of you who don't like to slow down at humps, and I don't know, I don't know why you wouldn't slow down at humps, but in any case, if you're driving over bits of bumpy road, and this applies to, you know, those kind of like road repairs as well. Okay, actually, you know what? I've got a clear piece of road, so I'm going to show you how this car handles as well. So generally speaking, because the car is comfortable, even if you're going over undulations in the road, you've got quite a bit of comfort where it comes to like, you don't feel out of control. So it irons out the imperfections in the roads very nicely, and that gives you like a, you know, it gives you the sensation of driving like a smooth. Okay, so I went over there at 50, and there was nothing at all, no feeling. That felt so comfortable. In fact, the dash cam didn't even activate, although I went over the hump at 50. In most cases, driving over a hump at 50 would activate the dash cam as a sort of like an incident, like a sort of the vibration levels would have hit a point where the dash cam will activate, but not in the Ioniq 6. So really, really, really impressive drive. If you take away one thing from this review, it's that the Ioniq 6 is supremely comfortable. It definitely punches above its weight where it comes to ride quality and comfort. Super, super premium ride. So with that, you know, I would say that puts it in very, very good contention if you're looking for a car that it does that aspect of driving super, super well. Now, if I've missed out on anything else about the Ioniq 6 that you want to know about, please put your questions in the comment section below. I'll try my best to answer those questions. We've been getting quite a lot of comments of late, so it's getting a bit, it takes a bit of time for us to get back to everybody, but we'll do our best. Other than that, if you have enjoyed this review, found it useful in any way, please consider subscribing to the channel, giving this video a like, and maybe even sharing it with your friends and family, because we've got reviews coming out every single week, new car reviews. In fact, we've got a real backlog as well. We try to release like a review every single week, but actually, to be honest, we've got more than one review in the pipeline. So there's definitely a lot of cars for you to check out on the channel with us. We would love for you to join us for those reviews as well. And if you're a driver in Singapore and you're thinking about renewing your car insurance, because it's that time of the year, we have some really competitive quotes, some of the best quotes, insurance quotes for you. So please check out the link in the description. You can drop us an inquiry and we will get back to you with some of the best, most well-priced quotes that are on the market right now. In fact, if you want to sell your used car for the best price possible, we've got some pretty great quotes for you as well. So do check out the link, the other link in the description. So this is all free to inquire. So if you require our help, please do not feel shy. And you know what? Even if you already got an insurance quote, you need another one, you want to just compare, by all means, we are all super happy to give you a free quote and to show how much cheaper our insurance packages are. With that, as usual, please take care of yourself, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.